Hello and welcome everyone to another edition of Faye Fitness. Today we are continuing our Women's Self-Defense series, and today we are going to learn how to attack a predator's thigh area. So this is going to be the area between the groin and the top of the knee. So if this sounds like something you'd like to learn, stay tuned and I'll show you how. Thanks for tuning in today, guys. As you saw in the introduction, we're going to continue our moving down the body and finding areas to attack on a predator who may be coming at you and trying to harm you. Today we're going to focus on the thigh, and specifically the top of the thigh and the inside of the thigh. So that nice tender muscle area, primarily below the groin and above the knee. And then next week we'll get into the knee because that's a great area to attack on an opponent, and then continue moving down the body from there. And I'm sure as you've noticed right away that for the most part punches aren't going to be a good option for the thigh area, simply because they're just too darn low. Unless your attacker is very, very tall and you are a small, petite woman, it's just not very feasible to be in an attack situation where you're trying to stun your attacker and flee when you have to keep punching down and aiming at a target that's lower than, say, your waist level. So to combat that, we're going to focus on kicks, and then towards the end of the video I'll show you some supplemental punches that you can use in addition to the kicks that'll help stun your attacker so you can safely get away. These kicks that we're going to be using on Ed's thigh, especially the top and inner thigh, are the same kicks that we used last time. So we have our bridge kick, our lead kick, and our roundhouse kick. For those of you who didn't watch that video, I'll go ahead and demonstrate them and then we can move on with some examples. So first is a lead kick, and that's basically going to be where we lift our leg up and extend it out with as much force as possible. So the goal with this kick is to make contact with the top of the thigh and the bottom of our foot, and as much of that bottom of our foot as possible. So again, we're not kickboxing for this, so you don't have to worry about proper form, but from an upright position, you just want to be able to lift your knee, extend, retract, and come down. And I'll do this from the side so you can see. The reason that we want our leg to come up, out, and then back and down, as opposed to kicking out and letting it fall down, is what if your aim's not all that good on the first try? Or maybe you don't have all that much power. If your leg is falling in this arc to the ground, you're wasting a lot of time and energy if you needed to recoil and kick again. So with practice, the kick up, out, and back can get really fast, and you can be really good at this. So say the first kick isn't that effective, you can go in and strike him again. And the same is true for the left leg, just up, out, back, and down. So again, I'm right-handed, I tend to favor the right side of my body, but just know that all of these moves can be applied to the left side if you are left-handed. So that's going to be our lead kick, and really you can do that from any angle depending on where you are in relation to your attacker. So if for some reason Ed was to the side of me, I can do my lead kick, kick him, and with enough force he will topple sideways so I can turn and flee. And again, if Ed is coming at me directly, I can just lead kick, pop him really good in that thigh, and then turn and flee. The reason you want to kick in this upper thigh is it's naturally going to make the body pivot forward. We do this a lot in kickboxing. If someone accidentally kicks us a little too hard here, the body naturally bends forward in and on itself. So if Ed is bending forward, he can't chase me because now he's in pain and he's focusing more on his leg. Plus he's not in a very good position to run. So next we'll talk about is the bridge kick. And the bridge kick is where the top of my foot is going to make contact with this inner thigh area. So on Ed, I'm going to bring my leg up and over to make contact. And again with the left leg, up and over. And that's great because this inner thigh is actually really sensitive on anybody, men, women, you name it. And so this is a kick that can potentially, if you hit him hard enough, bring him to his knees. I've seen it done before, and I know that you can do it with practice. So again, we just want to bring our leg, just like with the lead kick, up, only this time we're going to go a little bit more over as opposed to straight out. So leg up, over, and down. Again, try not to let it drop just because you're wasting time. And if worst case scenario, you do need to kick him again, your leg is already primed and ready to go. Again, the same is true for the left leg. Bring it up, over, and then down. Lead kicks, bridge kicks don't really work especially well on the outside of the thigh, just because these muscles are generally stronger and more stabilizing in nature, unlike the inner corners or the inner thigh. So next is a roundhouse kick. And as you probably know from my kickboxing series, these are my favorite kicks. We're not going to really talk a lot about proper form with this because, again, we're just wanting to hurt our attacker and flee. But basically a roundhouse kick is the top of your shin, not your foot or your ankle. We don't want to hurt yourself, like sprain your ankle, break your foot or anything. But the top of your shin is going to be making contact with Ed's thigh. If you're really good at it, you could kick him in the abdominal cavity, or if you're super flexible and really good at it, you could kick him in the head. But for now, let's just focus on the thigh. So all you're going to do is just from a normal stance, your leg is going to come up and over. So my hip is going to try to focus on having your side of your hip face the ceiling. Again, we're not going to get too crazy about the form, but this way you'll have enough force behind it to do some damage. So we're just going to come up and over and then down. But for this practice, just for now, practice on getting your leg up and over. It can be a little tricky, so don't worry if it takes you some time. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I can link you to my roundhouse kickboxing video or give you some advice on the fly depending on your situation. But the main takeaway is when you're kicking up and over, your body is going to turn. So if you notice, I started kicking this way and I ended the kick facing another direction. So if you can see the difference there. So my leg's gonna come up, over, kick, and down. And again, I'm wearing a dress today. This is something you can do in a dress and it's super effective. Again, what it's going to do is topple Ed over so that he's leaning down, and then we can get into the really fun kicks. The really fun punches. But I'll do one last kick before we move on to some combo moves and a little bit more advanced stuff. So the next kick is called a back kick. And so that's if Ed's behind me, and so I'm facing straight ahead, but I know he's back there. I can just lift my leg up and kick straight back. Easy peasy. Some people call it a donkey kick, so if that works for you, go for it. And again, from the side, we're just going to lift our leg up and kick straight back out. And this will have a lot of force behind it as well. The only drawback, at least for me with this kick, is my aim isn't all that great, so I need to practice it a lot. So that might be something where you just maybe put a pillow on a couch and just practice kicking it a few times until you get comfortable not only knowing how far your leg can extend, so how far your target needs to be behind you, but also in terms of accuracy. So it's just up and kick back. Most people, when they're doing this kick, they will just naturally lean forward because of all the force of your leg going backwards. And again, I'm using my right leg a lot, but the exact same things can be used on the left leg. So now let's talk about some fun combo punches. So we've talked about how hitting the top of the thigh generally makes your attacker bend forward. That's great because now that he's bent forward, he's now level for all of our great punches that we've been learning. So for example, if I do a lead kick and Ed bends forward, his head is now at the perfect level to jab, to cross, to do a hook, or I can grab his head and ram it into the top of my knee. That one's not going to feel all that pleasant for you, but it's going to do a lot more damage to Ed as opposed to yourself. And the reason though I want to grab his head and ram it into my knee is I'm trying to get his nose to make contact with the top of my knee and break it. Because once his nose is broken, pretty much it's all over for Ed. It's going to hurt, his eyes are going to water and become blurry, there's going to be blood everywhere, he's going to be in intense pain, and he's not going to be focused on you, so you can escape. So the same for a bridge kick is if we kick up and over, ideally again he's going to bend forward or come down to his knees. So now again he's at this nice hitting target. in hitting level. So again, if you've never seen a jab or a cross, they're really easy. So your jab is basically just extending the arm forward. So try to think of it as having your knuckles facing the ceiling right up until the last moment, and then you swap over to where your fist and knuckles are facing your opponent. And always try to keep your pinky outward. You don't want to do something like this or like this. You want your thumb to be closest to you and your pinky closest to your attacker, and just fire it. Same is true of the cross, only for if you're right-handed, this is going to be your power punch. This is where all of that nice force comes from, because if you're jabbing, do you see how my core shifted as well? I get a lot more force behind it than a jab, where I'm just doing this. I could do this all day, and it's going to stun my opponent. So if Ed was coming at me, I kick him, jab, and then I can turn and run away. But the other option I could do if I really wanted to pack a punch and teach him a lesson is do my lead kick and then cross right to the face, breaking the nose. You could do the temple, the jaw, the throat, any of those areas, and it's really going to hurt. It's going to stun him so you can get away. Hooks are great as well. For the left hook, you're just going to come up and over. So do you see how my arm is parallel to the ground? And again, if you're a fighter, you're going to be in your fighting stance and come up and over. But for most people, just up and over, it's good enough. You're mainly just wanting to hit his sensitive areas, again, to stun him more than he already was by the kick, so you can flee. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And thank you for everyone who's commented. You all are amazing. If you have any additional questions or feedback on this video today, please leave it down below, and I will get to it as soon as possible. And otherwise, tune in next week, where we talk about the knees and how to attack that on an opponent. So until then, bye guys!